Hi there, Ginger Lou here, and I am just going to make an epoxy video. I want to show you how you can epoxy your artwork. I make this mixed media collage work, and I like to put a clear coating over the top. So here we go. First thing you need, you want to wear gloves because epoxy is not water soluble. And here is the epoxy that I prefer. It is Wise Bond Bar and Tabletop Epoxy, and it's a two-part epoxy. So there's two containers here, and I'm gonna measure my epoxy. I'm gonna use this container that had gelato in it. It's just a nice container. I want this size. I feel like this is a good size to cover these pieces. So, and then I'm gonna use this Folgers container, and I have also a blow dryer. We're gonna use that to clear off any bubbles that rise to the surface. And I have a rubber spatula, and I have a stir stick. So, after you have all those things together, your epoxy, larger container, smaller container for measuring, blow dryer, and stir stick, rubber spatula. You're ready to go. And I just want to show you this really quick. I went ahead and I put these small, they're Dixie cups underneath the artwork to raise it up so that any epoxy drips can go over the sides. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna just poke a hole in the top here. Each one. Okay. I'm going to fill this all the way up to the top. Actually, now that I'm pouring, that seems kind of like a lot. Maybe I'll do halfway. Let me see. I got to look at it. I have to eye it. So I'm just going to fill this up. It just has to be equal parts. Yeah, that's fine. It's nice that this has writing on it because I can kind of gauge it, how full I want it by that aspect. So I just did it right to the top of the logo. This in here. And your epoxy layer doesn't really have to be super, super, super thick. You can do it on the thinner side with no problem. Okay, so I have that in there. Now I'm going to add this one to the same level. Okay. That in. And you want to make sure that you read the label on the epoxy because you don't want the environment to be too warm or too cold, but it will let you know the exact temperatures that are best for pouring your particular brand of epoxy that you're going to be using. Okay, so here we go. Since I'm not mixing that much, I'm just going to use my spatula today. And you want to mix this in very kind of gently because you don't want to create more bubbles in the epoxy than you need. So I'm just going to mix this up. And you want to mix it until it becomes clear. When you first start, it's cloudy. And then the more you mix it, it becomes more clear. And you should use this in a well-ventilated area. But be careful with using it outside because you don't want to leave or dirt to fall into it or a fly or a lizard. So I'm not saying that maybe happened before. Yeah, so things like that can happen. So you want to have a safe area free from critters and falling debris. So I'm just going to keep mixing this. And if you want to see some of my finished work, you can go to pixels.com and just do an artist search for Ginger Lou. And you can see all my work on there. All right, not quite ready yet. It's getting there though. I can see it's starting to become more clear. Okay. Another thing I want to mention that's really important actually, if you're using this over collage work that involves paper or fabric, it's always a good idea to put Mod Podge over, I usually put 2 layers over the paper and the fabric. I put it over the fabric so that it seals it in, so after you put the epoxy on, it doesn't create more bubbles from the air pockets rising out of the fabric. And I put it over the paper images so that it doesn't distort the quality of your images. Okay, so I feel like it's pretty activated. The warmer the temperature of the environment is that you're pouring this in, the faster this will set. So you want to make sure you pay attention to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pour some of this on. And a lot of times I'll set up several projects to epoxy at one time. I really like using this rubber spatula. Usually I tilt it, but this works really good. And then another thing I noticed about the rubber spatula is it doesn't, like the excess epoxy, if I used it again, would just kind of pop off. And not, you know, like with the wooden stir stick, you can't take it off. It's just on there. But with this, I noticed that you can kind of clean it better after it dries. And it's, I don't know, this is really nice. It helps me to move it around. I usually just kind of tilt it and use the top of my finger. So this is nice. And I do have pieces of mirror in here, and that works great with the epoxy. It's fine. I just clean it with Windex really well and make sure it doesn't have any pieces of lint or anything in it. So, I'm noticing also when I'm using the spatula to move this around, it's helping me get rid of any bubbles that are on there. So that's nice. So I want to make sure it's all coated. And a good method to use to make sure is to kind of turn it towards the light. And you'll see from their, based on their reflection, if there's any, you know, kind of like holes in it, in the covering of it. So I see a little tiny one here. I'm going to add that. All right, and then I'm going to do this one. And I have some more still, so I'll add some more on top of that as well. So here we go. I'm just going to continue covering this. Nice, even all over. And it's okay if it goes off the edges because I have some plastic covering my table. So that's all good. And if you have anything metallic or glittery, it'll really, the epoxy will really make that pop out and shine and give it more of like a three-dimensional quality. All right, here we go. Okay, so let me check and see if this is all covered. Any holes in the coverage? All right. Then I'm gonna move this back a little bit more. Now we have that on. I'm gonna just kind of use up the rest of this. So this will be a nice, thick layer. I'm sure the buyer will appreciate that. Okay, all that out. Now I'm going to just kind of push this to even it out a little bit. And it'll settle in an evenly here. Okay, there we go. And I'll reuse this container, and it's no problem. You don't have to get a new one each time. And I like this one too, and I'll probably reuse this because I like how it has the writing, and then I can, if I don't want to use the whole thing, I can gauge exact points where to fill it to. So I'm going to grab my blow dryer and plug it in. So you want to use one just for epoxy. You don't want to use your regular hair dryer because you get epoxy all over it. Like for instance, my controls are all kind of sealed in. You can't adjust them. So I can't turn it on and off for this. I have to plug it in. So that's a possibility. Here we go. So all of the bubbles are out, and it has a nice even coating, and the colors are more vibrant. And I have glitter on here too, so you can really see the glitter. It makes it very three-dimensional. So there you go. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate being able to share my knowledge of epoxy with you. Have a great day. Thank you so much.